Back, guys, to a Wednesday edition from a sunny 70-degree Michigan. So hopefully you guys are having some good weather wherever you are. Today, good stuff to talk about. This is a really fun kind of unit that many of you guys probably had some interesting discussion in your own classrooms. The rest of this week, basically, we get to talk all about supply and demand and markets and consumer choice. My name is Mr. Pedlow, teaching up from Chelsea High School up in Chelsea, Michigan. And today we're going to do cost benefit analysis and then consumer choice. So we're going to hopefully give you the economic terms so you understand exactly how you've been making choices. So the first thing I want to do is go over what we finished up with yesterday. Really important stuff, that terms of trade. So if you guys did this yesterday, if you had a chance to look this over and jot down some answers, we'll see how you did. So let's go through this with you guys real quick before we get to the marginal stuff. So once again, you have your production possibilities. You have two curves here, country A, country B. They're making wheat and cloth. So which country has an absolute advantage in the production of wheat? So you just go up here and you realize that both countries are making the exact same amount of wheat. So the answer is neither, because neither country is making more than the other. So that would be the explanation. They're both making 100. Okay, remember, absolute advantage, who can do it faster, who can make more. B, which country has comparative advantage? Now remember, one country, if they have a comparative advantage in wheat, the other country must have the comparative advantage in the other good. So you just have to do the math. So if you look down here, and so remember yesterday we kind of did this math. So if you say country wheat, they can make 100 units of wheat or 100 units of cloth. Remember, step one, this is an output. We talked about that yesterday. They're using equal amounts of resources. So this is the amount of output per day. So they'd be giving up 1 unit of cloth. And if country A made cloth, they'd be giving it for every 1 unit of cloth, they could have made 1 unit of wheat, right? 100 to 100, 1 to 1. Easy stuff. Country B, if they decided to make wheat, well, for every 1 wheat, they could have made 3 cloth. So you put a little 3 up there. And then over here would be 1/3. Every time they finished with 1 cloth, they only would have been 1/3 of the way done with wheat. Okay. So then you compare the two, you say who's going to make what, and country A, will make wheat, country B will make cloth. So B, which country has comparative advantage in the production of wheat? So you say country A, and which country has comparative advantage in cloth? Country B. And then when they say the explanation, if you guys see a question like this, you can use the math. You could say country A has a lower opportunity cost in this, and country B has a lower opportunity cost in this because 1/3 is less than 1, blah, blah. Okay. C, with specialization in trade, which country will import wheat? So you have to say to yourself, who's going to make the cloth? Because then they're going to have to trade and bring in, right? Import that wheat. So country B, and if they said why, because they have the comparative advantage in cloth, because 1/3 is less than 1. So country B is going to go ahead and make the cloth. Therefore, they're going to have to bring in the wheat into their country. And now, hopefully you guys are like getting all this because that was kind of review, easy stuff. But now you get to D, right? The terms of trade, the trickier point on here. So assume the two countries trade, and 1 bushel of wheat is exchanged for 2 yards of cloth. Explain why the country that imports wheat will gain. So first of all, they're throwing you a bone here. They're giving you an easy one. They're not saying both countries. They're just simply saying which country is going to import wheat. Well, you already said that. It's going to be country B because they're going to make the cloth. And why, if it's 1 to 2, would they benefit? Because right now, if they decided to make wheat, their opportunity cost is 3 cloth. If they traded, they'd only have to give up 2 cloth for every wheat. So they're gaining a cloth. So you could just put that right over here. Here's country B. We're not even worried about country A. Put them up there. Don't even worry about it because they're just worried about the country that imports, right? Right there. So 2 for 1. And right now they have to give up 3. They'd love to give up only 2 in trade. So there you go. Hopefully you don't have questions. Hopefully that terms of trade stuff is making sense. Remember, all I did over here was make a little chart of 1 to 1 and 1 to 3. And then does it fall between the two? And lo and behold, it does. Life's good. Okay, today, the important stuff. Opportunity cost. We talked a little bit about this on Friday last week, maybe Monday. My days are running together. I'm sure yours are as well. Opportunity cost, once again, it's the best alternative given up when making a choice. It's important to understand every single choice you make has a cost to it. So remember the old tin stoffel, right? Nothing in life is free. So every single time you guys make a choice, then there is some type of cost associated with this. Kids have challenged me on this before. I remember years ago during the World Series, they had a thing that if someone I think this is right, if someone stole a base, you got a free taco at Taco Bell. And so kids are raising their hand saying, we've proved economics wrong. There is a free lunch. It's a free taco. And so, of course, right, nothing in life is free. It's your time to go to Taco Bell. It's the fact you're eating it. It's the fact that you have to take gas money possibly to get to Taco Bell. You get up there and you end up buying more things, right? There's nothing in life is free. So every choice has an opportunity cost. That should be the number one thing you guys learned in economics. Not always benefit. Let's look at the cost. So we have to divide this up. And I would make sure you guys know this. These are really good terms that could show up on your free response portion of your test coming up soon. And if you ask to define things, it's just knowing these things. So explicit cost are your cash payments. It's what you're paying out, your explicit cost. Your opportunity cost, or what we call your non-monetary cost, are your implicit cost. There's also something called an implicit benefit, which is your non-monetary benefits. What benefit do I get teaching? I tell my students all the time, I think they're some of the greatest kids in the world. There are very, very, very few days that I wake up and don't want to go to work. Now, if you saw my paycheck, you might not understand why that is. But if you realize that the benefit of me teaching is a non-monetary benefit, it's an implicit benefit. What is that? It's the joy I receive, the utility we're going to talk about here in a second, the satisfaction from getting to coach and teach and run clubs and just be part of these kids' lives for a short period. So when we talk about explicit and implicit, understand the difference. Explicit is actually cash going out. Implicit is typically your opportunity cost, your non-monetary, okay? So you don't need to write this down. We'll do it over here. Let's say you decide to attend four-year college if you're choosing, okay? Let's hope you all you seniors who are watching, I'm sure it's about that week where you're making those decisions. Most of the colleges have started releasing all the admission stuff. So let's say you got in your college and it's pricey. It's 15 grand a year in tuition, okay? Not room board, tuition. So you're gonna go to college for 4 years. Keep in mind, statistics say you're going to be there a little longer, and your parents don't want to hear this, but college is a really good time, and it's a lot of fun to be around people your age, living in houses with not a tremendous amount of responsibility. So some of you may extend that. Some of you might have enough AP credits to be really smart and get out in 3 years because now you're saving a lot of money. So let's say, just keep this easy, you're going to go for 4 years. So 4 times 15,000 a year is $60,000. Okay, don't worry about financial aid scholarships. We're keeping this clean. Now, since you're going to college, you're going to give up your job. Now, most of you are probably pretty rational, intelligent people. Most of you, if you didn't go to college and got a job, could earn $8,500 a year. Okay, we're just going to make this easy. By going to college, let's say you just had to give that up. So what is your total cost to go to college? Well, a lot of people would say 15 times 4 is 60. That's my cost, but you have to also include your opportunity cost. It's what you're giving up as well. So your opportunity cost is $34,000 over the 4 years. It's 4 times 8,500. And if you add those together, your total cost is $94,000. That's just tuition. Now here's a question. If you see a question like this on the AP test, why isn't food and like clothing included in here? Now think about this for a minute. Why would they include food? Yeah, because you have to eat regardless of where you're living. Now, from a purely economic standpoint, you might start looking at the difference between like a really expensive meal plan and then buying your ramen noodles in your house, and right? And you can save more money doing that, but we're just keeping this easy today. So you wouldn't include food or clothing in this because you have to buy those things regardless. We're just talking about your tuition and then your opportunity cost to give up, which is why when students come to me and say, hey, I think I'm going to go to this college. It feels right. I went for a tour and I ask them, how much is it? Well, it's $58,000 a year. What are you thinking? That's not why you go to college. You go to college because I'm going to pick a college that I think I can get a decent major to lead me into a good job. Because you want to keep this number over here as low as possible, right? That 94,000. You don't want to graduate with $100,000 in credit card, or excuse me, in college debt. We certainly don't want credit card debt either. Most of your teachers have probably talked to you guys when they're talking about college debt and opportunity costs and all that. So then, question for you. Okay, don't write this down if you're taking notes on this stuff, but what if you were offered a job, right? They offer you a starting salary, $75,000 a year. Day one, right out of the gate. Day one, not bad, but you didn't love the job. So you have 2 job offers, one 75 grand, one 50. What if you take that $50,000 a year job? Now, what does that tell you? Don't say, well, it tells you you're an idiot or you're irrational. What if you're not? What if this is a rational choice? What if it's your optimal choice? Your marginal benefit equals your marginal cost. What would that mean? And going back to that implicit benefit, right? That non-monetary benefit, it means that you value that other job at least $25,000 more than they're paying you. Maybe they give you more time off, flex time. Maybe you like the people you're working with. It's not irrational to take jobs that might pay less than other jobs. I have students who are working 110 hours a week right now. I'm not, well, clearly I'm not right now, but normal week, right? Even when I'm coaching 60 something hours, I'm not putting in 110 hours a week. So that's when you start talking about this non-monetary and opportunity costs, you need to include those things. Okay. Let's get to utils. Yes, I have donuts. This is for you Boston folks who can't, and you love talking about Dunkin' all the time. So when we talk about utility, it's a word we're going to be using today. We're going to use it as we move on tomorrow as well. Utility is simply another word for satisfaction, right? And we can actually, economists can measure your satisfaction level per utils, which is a real word. Kids, they always think it's a made up word. It's not. It's your individual bits of satisfaction. Economists are pretty good at measuring satisfaction levels. So let's say, just to make this easy, every time you eat a Dunkin' glazed donut, you get 20 utils. Okay, that's just a number you have. That's a satisfaction level. Most of you probably don't eat a meal and say, this falafel brought me utils today. It's not really how we talk. So the reason we bring up utility, and I'm going to explain what this is and then tell how you probably learn this in your classroom. So it's called diminishing marginal utility. I would know this up, down, and sideways. We're going to talk about this again tomorrow. It's an important thing to talk about. I'm going to show you how you see this on a curve here in a second. So diminishing marginal utility simply means as consumers are buying more and more of a good, their additional satisfaction they receive is increasing, but at a decreasing rate. So it falls. Each additional unit, your additional satisfaction falls. Now, let's think about this for a minute. Why would this be? Well, that first bite of donut, right? All the chemicals in your brains, they sense that, the fat and the sugar and a little bit of salt, and they're just going nuts. They love it. So you have a second bite, even better. And by the third, fourth, fifth bite, your body has the sugar in it, right? Your mouth, you've already tasted it. And then maybe the second donut brings you 15 utils, and then maybe the third one brings you 10, and then the fourth one. And I took students once to, I took my family, and a bunch of students came along with me, and we went to Krispy Kreme down in West Ashley, South Carolina. And they decided they thought they could prove me wrong. So one of them ate 16 or 17 Krispy Kreme donuts. He did puke halfway through. But his point was, he thought that his utility was increasing each donut, right? If you're vomiting in the parking lot, your utility is not increasing in each donut. So the question is, some of your teachers might have shown you a couple different ways. Maybe they set a bucket of M&Ms in front of someone and made them eat M&Ms and then tell the teacher what their level of satisfaction was. And then maybe they put marginal cost up there as well. So they would say, what's your additional benefit, your additional utility, what's your additional cost? And right, as you continue eating M&Ms, your cost goes up, your additional cost, your marginal cost goes up, your marginal benefit falls. Or maybe they put water. I always use a gallon of water, and I find a kid who's thirsty and put a cup of water and make them drink. And then you fill up the cup, come on, let's go, finish it up. And then after about the third or fourth glass, right, they're full. Their utility is drastically falling each additional cup I give them. That's called diminishing marginal utility. Those of you who've never bought a newspaper, right, this is what we used to buy newspapers out of. And yes, you can still find these here and there, but these newspaper vending machines you see. Think about this for a minute. If I go to a soda machine and I put $1 in to buy a soda, and pardon me for those of you who live in states that call it Coke, or if you're down south, down south you call it Coke, or if you somewhere in the Midwest or Western New York you call it Pop, right? We're all on the same page. So if I go to a vending machine and buy a soda and I put my $1 in, only one comes out. I can't get more. But if I go to a newspaper machine, some of you might not even know this, how these operate, you put coins in, then that little the door opens up, and when you open it up, there's a stack of newspaper. You could take them all. Now think about it. This doesn't make sense. They are both there to make profit. And one of them, you can only get one of the goods. The other, you can take them all. Why is that? It's because what is your marginal utility with each additional soda? It's pretty high, right? You could save it, drink it tomorrow. What's your marginal utility of an additional newspaper? There isn't any. There's no additional satisfaction. Once you've read it, you don't go read it again. So therefore, they didn't worry about people taking them. There you go. And total net benefit, something we're going to talk about today. This is important to understand, and I'm going to show you some multiple choice questions to look at exactly what they might throw at you on the free response. It's the difference between total benefit and total cost. And what's important to understand is as consumers, we maximize our utility. That's our goal. We're always trying to maximize our satisfaction levels, right? So it's the difference between the total benefit and the total cost. And if you think about what our government tries to do, they try and spend money on, like, let's say our infrastructure right now, right? Some of the worst, I mean, Michigan, we are dead last for roads in the United States. We have the worst roads. If you fly into Detroit Airport, it's a beautiful airport, and you get out and all of a sudden you're like, what is going on? Where am I? The roads are so bad. We know that because the Teslas map the roads. It's pretty amazing, and send it up to the cloud. So we need money to fix the roads. And so what the government would do is say, all right, what's the total cost for this? Now, what is the total benefit? Which is why, like, if you live in a state that allows back roads to be gravel all over the place, they do this because marginal benefit, marginal cost, total benefit, total cost, right? Why would we pave a road that 20 people a day use if it's going to cost $1 million? We should do that maybe in town, something like that. And so remember, as consumers, we try and maximize utility. And don't write this one down. It's a kind of a fun one to talk about. If you think about, you're at a buffet and you pay $20 to eat at the buffet, right? And it's, you know, it's just outstanding. It's the best buffet ever. And you go up to the buffet. What's your marginal cost? Your additional cost each time you go up. There is none, right? It's a sunk cost. You've already paid it. So your additional cost, and think about when people's marginal cost is zero, they tend to overuse things. Do you think people overeat at buffets? Do you ever see people with the huge plates of food and then they get halfway through and then they go back up? Because to them, the additional cost is zero, and they'll continue using it until their additional utility is also zero. And then they'll stop, meaning they have to unbuckle, right? They can barely breathe. So these are all measures of utility, total benefits, things like that. This line, please excuse my drawing. That's the best I can make it. It really doesn't look like, it looks in the same shape. So give me some latitude here. And this is your total utility, and notice what's happening, right? As you watch this graph, your total utility is increasing, but eventually at a decreasing rate. And why is that? This is your diminishing margin utility. Each additional donut is bringing you some level of satisfaction. I would say until maybe you start vomiting, and then maybe it's negative margin utility. But right now, your total utility is increasing. It's just at a decreasing rate. It certainly doesn't do this. It's not a 45-degree line, okay? So that's, if you want to see what diminishing margin utility looks like, that's it, graphically. My quantity of donuts on the x-axis, as I continue eating more donuts, my utility goes up, but it starts flattening out. So far, so good. So let's look at a couple questions here. Okay, the table above shows the cost and benefits for new construction projects based on these. So let's look at the first one. Would we widen existing highways? The cost for society is 100 million. The benefit is only 80. The government typically does not fund, unless the famous bridge to nowhere in Alaska, they tend to not fund things if there's not going to be a net benefit. So A is just bad. B, cost is 100, the benefit is 90. Still, we're not there. C, the cost of society 100 million, the benefit 140. That's pretty good. D, the cost 100, the total benefit 115. So it's okay. We're getting 15 million in benefit. And then E, expanding the airport, you're getting 30 million in benefit. So the question is, obviously, you know, it's between the last three. So you have to say, where are we maximizing? What's optimal here? And it's simply the building a new bridge. Because if it costs me 100 million, but I'm getting 140, that's the best thing they could do. It brings us more benefit to everyone. And then using cost benefit analysis, a local government would decide to build a new bridge if, okay, so once again, we're talking total here. We're not looking at the margin, we're talking about our total net benefit. So if you look at like A, the additional tax paid by an individual resident is greater than the benefit. Well, that doesn't even make sense. If we're paying more in tax than the benefit, we shouldn't do that. B, the toll paid by them is less than the benefit. Well, that's only focusing on that individual. We want to know what the total net benefit is. C, the total cost of building the bridge are less than the total benefits. That could be correct. D, the total costs are greater than the total benefits. It's not good. And then E, total costs are a minimum, total benefits are a maximum. So most of you are smart people, right? AP, there's usually out of 5 answers, 1 kind of, and they don't really expect people to get it. And then 2 that don't really make sense. And usually most kids who are between 4 and 5 can always separate them into 2 questions or 2 answers. And the 5s are the ones that get the answer correct. The 4s are the ones that miss half of them. So you're between C and E, but how do we know the costs are at a minimum and the benefits are at a maximum? You don't. What you do know is C. They would build a bridge if the costs are less than the total benefit from building the bridge. Okay. And then last but not least, I like this one. Okay. Carlos has a van, 20 seats, charges people $10 per ride. His cost of the trip is $140. So it doesn't matter how many people he has on board, that's how much it costs him to run it. So this one, he has 19 seats filled. So 19 times 20, what's that? 380. So he's already made tons of money. And then, so think about Carlos at this point, right? He is already receiving a benefit. So the person offers him $5. Should he accept the offer? So if you say no, because it's $20 to get on, no, hold on for a minute. Let's think about this. So he's already made his money. So let's not even worry about that. Right now, what is his marginal cost? Don't say, well, you'd have to weigh the person because there's fuel cost. Let's just say the person gets on and what's their additional cost from? There isn't one. So anything above 0 would be good for Carlos, meaning this is how airlines should operate, right? They should have reverse clocks doing the countdown auctions. I love those. So maybe you show up to an airline, you say, I feel like going to LA for the weekend. How much for a ticket? And you say, I'll offer you $3. Maybe other people bid. And then, because if there's one extra seat, even $3 is better than nothing. So if you look through the answers here, A, B, and C are wrong because you know the answer. Yes, they should allow him to get on this. Now you're down to D and E, and we got to figure out why that is. Is it because the marginal benefit exceeds marginal cost? Right. So the $5 they're going to earn is greater than 0 because that's the marginal cost. And then yes, because his total revenue exceeds his cost. Well, none of his revenues are way above his total cost. It's not just by $5. So the answer is D. The marginal benefit of putting him on for $5 is better than the 0. Yeah, he should take $1 if the guy wants a ride. Okay, then let's really dive into a free response and get Boogie in here. So I'm going to do this one with you. If you need to pause this, if you're not watching it live and you want to do this yourself, I'm going to do this and run through it rather quickly here. So Raleigh is spending 3 hours studying Mike, 2 hours studying history, calculator gain from the second hour studying history. So what that means is if she's doing 3 hours of micro and 2, she could have been spending 4 and 1. So now if she's going to study another hour of history, she went from getting a 40 to a 60. So the answer is she went up 20 points, okay? Because she's got 5 hours to study, right? It says it right up here. So instead of doing 4 and 1, she's doing 3 and 2. So she went from a 40 to a 60. B, what's her opportunity cost of the second hour studying history? Okay, so when she went and she decided to pick up a second hour, that means she couldn't study 4 hours anymore. She could only study 3 hours. So what did she give up? We know she gained 20. What did she give up? She went from a 96 to a 90. So her opportunity cost is 6 points. You guys do this. If you're an AP Micro and AP Macro, or AP Gov and AP Micro, you have to decide what am I going to study, and each additional hour I study Gov is additional time, less time I can study Micro. So, but if you think you're getting a 5 in this, but maybe a 3 on Gov, then you should probably be spending more time. C, assume she increases the time she allocates to studying history. What happens to her opportunity cost? Well, let's look at it. All you have to know is as she's going to study more and more history, that means she must therefore be studying less and less econ. So her opportunity cost is increasing. Look what's happening. If she decides to drop down an hour, it's 4 points, then 6, then 8, then 12. And then if she doesn't study at all, she gets a 0. That's hard to believe. But it's increasing. Her opportunity cost is increasing. Each additional hour, she's giving up more and more points for econ. And then D, if she has a goal of maximizing her test scores, all you have to do, I'm going to do this really quick. You just have to add these two numbers together. So 5 means she had 0 over here, so 100 plus, right? And then go through, and I think the answer is 2 hours of micro and 3. I think it's 100 and, what is that? 84, 154 points total, and that's the highest you can get on here. And then E, tennis practice has been canceled. That's a bummer. Freeing up additional hour for studying. So let's say she is doing 2 and 3. Should she study an extra hour for econ or an extra hour for history? And the answer is micro, right? Because if she's here, she's going to gain 8 points. And if she studies an extra hour, she went from 3 to 4 hours, she'd only gain 5 points in history. And 8 Going from an 82 to a 90 is better than going from a 72 to a 77, which is 5 points. Therefore, she studies econ. Smart move on her part. Okay, there we go. Let's talk about utility maximization. So remember back to labor graphs about a week ago, I taught you guys that the marginal product of labor divided by the wage has to equal the marginal product of capital divided by the price of capital, what they're renting the capital for. And if the number is higher on one of them, you use more of that. So if it's per dollar, you're getting more marginal product out of using labor, you hire more workers. We're going right back to a similar thing here. So when we talk about utility maximization, it's the marginal utility of good X divided by the price of good X needs to equal the marginal utility of good Y divided by the price of good Y. So let's say, okay, sorry, Boston folks, but we're going down south now. We're going to Krispy Kreme land, and we're going to have a donut. And yes, I know I use donuts and coffee and things like that a lot. If you guys have seen that online, that he's actually my son's professor at Michigan who said beef like 100 times on Twitter. It's pretty good. So let's say you can have a cappuccino, you can have a donut, and you decide, so I'm eating, and then I get thirsty. Well, why are you doing that? Right? If you've ever stopped to think, what you would say is, because I'm thirsty, let's move on. But no, it's all econ. So what you're looking at is your marginal utility per dollar. So do I buy more coffee? Do I buy more donuts? It depends on what you do, because you're looking at your additional utility per dollar. So you consumers, us, are always attempting to maximize utility by looking at this per dollar. So what we're doing is we're looking at this formula up here. So here's what's key on this. And you guys need to understand this. When we talk about marginal, we're talking about each additional. We're always talking about the last dollar spent, right? The marginal utility of the last dollar spending. What are we getting for that? So you could go, any two goods you can think of. What's bringing you more utility per dollar, and therefore you spend more money on that. So you have $20 to spend on cappuccino or donuts. Okay, so you have $20. You're going to spend it all, right? And they're going to make that clear if this is a question in the free response. The consumer is going to spend this much money. Donuts $2, cappuccinos cost $3. So then you get a margin utility for the last donut of 12, and cappuccino margin utility of 15 for the last cappuccino you buy. So let's look at this math here. 12 over $2. So the marginal utility of good X, 12, divided by the price, they're $2. And then the margin utility of good Y, cappuccino, is 15, divided by the price, 3. Now we know 6 does not equal 5. So here is, of course, the question. And this is what is really important for you guys to understand today. What do you consume more of, the cappuccino or the Krispy Kreme? So let's look at this. 6, that's the margin utility per dollar. It's a unit that you're getting. We know it's greater than 5, right, for the donuts. So what do? Well, you buy more donuts. It's giving you more satisfaction per dollar you're spending. And sometimes kids struggle with this kind of concept. So think about it this way. Let's say your time had value, because hopefully your time does have value, right? If I said I have a 5-year-old, will you babysit for 30 cents an hour? Hopefully you would find something better to do. So let's say you all fall in love, which is nothing sweeter, right? And so you fall in love and you want to spend time with your significant other, but instead your friends are all calling you. It's Friday night. So you go to your friend's house and they're watching a movie and it's the same conversation and you're on your phone texting and you wish you were watching a movie with your significant other. Why is that? It's because the utility levels you're getting per dollar, the value of your time, is much higher to be with the other person. So what should you do? Go spend time with the other person, sit on the couch and watch a movie, because the value per dollar is higher. And eventually what happens? Diminishing marginal utility. Eventually that wears off and then you hang out with your friends again, and right. And we're doing all this stuff, but you just didn't know the words that we were using, all the econ behind it. So margin utility of good X divided by the price of good X, right? It's called utility maximization. And so let's look at a couple questions. We'll get to a free response and then get you guys back out into the sunlight. So assume the price of a candy bar is $2 and the price of a bag of chips is $3. And Lily's margin utility from an additional candy bar is 10 utils. Margin utility of a bag of chips is 12. And she's going to spend all of her allowance on candy bars and chips. That's not really healthy, but we're going to give her a pass on this one. So let me just do the math here right next to you. So the margin utility of good X, we'll say candy bars, okay, 10. and the price of candy bars is $2. I know what you're thinking. This guy's getting pretty good with this this PowerPoint pen here. The margin utility of bag of chips, 12, and the price, $3. Okay, so 5 is obviously not equal to 4. So what should you do? You remember, use the one that's higher. You're getting more satisfaction per dollar. So this is candy bars. So what should she do? Well, she's getting more utility per dollar of candy bars. She should then be buying more candy bars. And if she buys more candy bars, she must be buying fewer chips. Okay, so that's why it's B. More candy bars, fewer chips. So just do the math. Everything in micro wants to balance. Remember that. That's when you're maximizing everything. So, and then the last one, Karen works. Karen, I know what you're thinking. She works part-time at a local convenience store. Sharon's $10 an hour. She wants to spend next Saturday afternoon attending a concert. Okay, the price of the ticket is $75, but she was able to get a discounted price of $50. Done to confuse you. What's important, 75 or 50? Who cares if it was 75? That's not what she paid. It doesn't matter what it was. It matters what she paid for it. So far, she's out $50. Okay, she bought it. If she takes 4 hours from her job, what was her opportunity cost? Okay, so you already know $50 is part of this. She has spent that money to go see this concert. Then she's earning $10 an hour at a convenience store, and she could have worked for 4 hours. So 4 times 10 is 40, and 50 plus 40 is $90. See, when we as teachers try and teach you guys this stuff, what we're trying to get you to understand is people would say, well, the concert cost me $50. Well, no, that's not true, because you could have been doing something productive with your time, right? You could have been working. So you have to add that in as well. So 50 plus 40, and you get right down here to $90. That's her opportunity cost for going to the concert. Okay. And then let's see here. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to get you started on this one. We're going to get you out of here. So here's the good news. I kind of give you the tip to start this. Okay. So she has a fixed budget of 20. She spends it all on 2 goods. So they've already given you the total benefit. Here's what I would highly recommend you do on a sheet of paper. Rewrite this. And yeah, it's going to be, not long, but so you get the quantity, you have the total benefit. And I tell my students all the time, when you see columns like this, you always need a marginal something, whatever they're talking about. If it's total cost, marginal cost, marginal benefit, right? In this case, it's total benefit. So you're going to need a marginal benefit, marginal utility column. So it's going to be the same thing. Benefit, utilities, our satisfaction. What benefit are we getting? So you need a marginal benefit. Then go back to the math, the formula I just showed you, the marginal benefit or marginal utility of good X over the price of good X. So you're going to need a marginal benefit per dollar next to that. And then do the same thing for Y. Quantity, total benefit, marginal benefit per dollar. Then, and do this before you even look at the questions, because you know they're going to ask you those questions. So don't waste your time trying to do that. Just go ahead and make your chart, and then all the answers will appear. So her marginal benefit of the 5th unit, her consumer surplus. If you can't get that one yet because you're hazy on the consumer surplus, I'll get that to you tomorrow, but it's actually pretty easy. C, use marginal analysis to show why this is either optimal or non-optimal. D, tell us what is optimal. And then E, what's going to happen to our optimal quantity if the price doubles, her income falls, and if her income doubles and the price is double. That's it. So go ahead, get this done by tomorrow, 3 o'clock. And then once we get through this, we got a lot tomorrow, because we have to go through all the reasons that demand changes and why demand curves slope the way they do. College Board loves talking about, right, these curves, the shape of these curves, why things look the way they do. So important stuff for potential free response questions, right? Supply and demand questions, which we're going to get to the basis of all economics over the next 2 days. So once again, it is always a pleasure spending 35 minutes with you fine people. I hope that this is helping you guys review certain concepts. I know you guys have had some fantastic educators out there. So for some of you, you might be like, this is easy, great. For some of you, if you have some questions, hopefully we're getting these answered, especially if you want to go back and press pause and go through it and then hear me go through the answers again. So once again, the old get the word out there if you know people or yourself who need some tech help. And thank you very much for watching today. It's been fun. Hopefully you'll join us again tomorrow, 3 o'clock, micro. Go enjoy your day. You guys stay healthy, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Take care of yourself.